Hi everybody, it's George at East Coast Computer Services. Right now I'm about to build a reasonably priced desktop computer with a 12-core processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a slim case so not to take up too much of the desk space. Thank you for watching. Inside this computer I'm using an AMD A-series processor, air cooling, and for my boot drive it's going to be an SanDisk SSD. For storage drive, a Western Digital and 1 terabyte hard drive. Crucial Ballistics DDR3, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a DVD burner, a gigabyte motherboard A8 series, and a micro ATX power supply. The motherboard has 2 USB 3.0 ports and 4 USB 2.0 ports, as well as an Ethernet port, a standard VGA port, and an HDMI port. The case is a Sente Slim case with a USB 2 and a USB 3.0 port, as well as front audio ports. After laying the case on its side, I removed the thumb screws and removed the side panel. The first thing I want to do is put in the power supply. Before I do that, I have to remove the drive rack, which is held in by 2 screws here. With the screws gone, I can remove the drive rack. Keep in mind that every tower is different. It's going to have different instructions for removing your parts. Once the drive rack is removed, I remove the top vent cover, a couple tabs in here. Now that that's removed, I'm ready to put in the power supply. Be sure the fan of the power supply lines up with the vent on the side of the case. All the screws connected, and then connect the power supply cable. Refer to the motherboard's screw holes for the positioning of the standoffs. The standoffs keep the bottom of the motherboard from making contact with the case and prevents a short circuit. The standoffs are where the screws secure the motherboard to the case. And then we're going to install the I/O backplate. That's where all the ports and then it'll be time for the motherboard. Now that the motherboard is all screwed in, we shall connect the processor and fan and make some of the other connections. Look for the arrow in the corner of the processor and line it up with the arrow on the socket. Slides right in. Push the locking arm down, and it's time for the fan. These clips hook onto the motherboard. Move that over for you so you can get a better look. Right here and here. It's hooked on both sides. You bring the lever around till it's nice and snug. And plug in the fan into the motherboard. Make sure the pins are lined up with the holes. Don't force it. Okay, here it is. We will neaten these up later. Now that the motherboard is in place and the CPU and cooler are in place, it's time to insert the RAM in its slot. Take note of the notch in the RAM module and the notch, the corresponding, I don't know if you can see it too well here, but the corresponding notch in the slot. It goes in, just make sure it's oriented properly. And push down one side, and notice the retaining tab moves into place. Push down here, same, and we do the same for the second one. Not in all the way. Give it another look here. Should snap right into place. One and two. There we go, success. Then we connect the CPU cooler fan and the system fan. I have not decided if we're going to use more than one system fan, but we will see how it goes. Let's find a spot for this. There's usually a couple sockets for the system fan. Here is one here, system fan one. It will go like that. We're going to have to untie the wire. I'll plug it in right there. Make sure everything's lined up. We got 3 to 4. We have 3 pins, 4 pins going into a 3-pin plug, which is fine. We'll neaten up the wires when we're all done here. Power supply to the motherboard. We have a 20 plus 4 connector coming from the power supply. 20 pins plus 4 here, which is pretty standard, going into a 24 pin plug, or socket rather. Flip that in. That should snap in. Just like so. If you need to remove it, you squeeze this tab and pull up on it. It locks in place. And we have the 4-pin connector goes in right over here. I'll give you a little more light so you can see it. At this point you want to connect your front panel connectors, such as your audio ports, your USB, and the power and hard drive lights. Note the missing pin. It's going to correspond with the missing hole on the plug. We go with the USB. Again, there's going to be a missing hole in the plug. Make sure you align it properly. The missing pin. Here are your front panel switch, reset switch, and LED connections. Take close attention to the positive and negative connections because the LED will not work if it's reversed. I typically leave the reset switch disabled so there's no chance of accidentally pressing the reset switch. I do find it curious though that there is no LED or hard drive LED connection for this. But we shall move on anyway. I'll put them in and then we'll secure the storage drives. Before I proceed, I'm going to test to make sure it powers on. Band spins up, so it looks good so far. Back. Slide in the optical drive. Make sure the screw holes are aligned. And secure the drive. Slide in the hard drive. Because of its smaller size, the solid state drive must first go into an adapter. Then it can go into the rack. Now this power supply has only two SATA power connectors, SATA, which I need more than two, so you can either use a Y connector or a Molex to SATA. Now that I've ensured that I have enough power connectors, I'll connect to the drive bay before we secure it because it's a little bit easier to work with when it's not in position. Now for the data connections, once all the cabling is connected to the drives, we slide in the drive rack and secure it. Next we connect the data cables from the drives into the motherboard. One last connection that I need to make is the USB 3.0 connector. Now this tower case has a 3.0 front port, but the motherboard does not have a header to plug in the cable, so I want to take advantage of all that the case has to offer, so I got an add-on card at PCI Express. It has the pins for the it has the header for the USB 3.0 as well as the power connector. What I do is just simply take out the slot cover, sometimes it takes a little work to get these out. You just basically have to break off the metal by bending it back and forth. I got one part out, and finally I have that one out, and I will put the add-on card in. Move that screw out of here. That should slide right in here. It may be easier to actually connect the cabling before putting the card in place, so let's do that. Double check these cables. And that's it, we're done. Just going to turn it on, load the operating system and any necessary drivers. With everything put in, we connect the keyboard, mouse and monitor and fire it up. Well, that makes sense. We have no operating system on, so we're in BIOS, so that's a good sign. All we have to do is install Windows or Linux or whatever operating system we like.